about my experiences here in Vietnam for the past 10 years. What I've learned, what I've experienced, and what I can share with you, both on the professional side, the personal side, and other different 10 to 11 things that I want to share with you today. So let's drive. So one of the things that's important about Vietnam, the first thing I learned is about interaction with people, both foreigners, local Vietnamese, and also different types of people. Is the first thing I learned, especially in business, is that you can only trust what people say to a certain extent. And depending on which region they're from, north, central, or south, you can trust to a certain degree. And it's not because they're trying to lie or they're trying to deceive you. It's just culturally, some will say more than they mean, and some will mean more than they say. So a very prime example, here in the south in Ho Chi Minh City, or what we call Minh Tay, people are a little bit more straightforward and honest. So you can trust about 70 to 80% of what they say is what they mean. And then you can actually rely upon it to make your decisions, both personally and professionally. Whereas in the north, in Hanoi, and some of the other regions, you can probably only, what we call take it with a grain of salt, is you can probably only listen to 40 to 50% as truth of what they say. Because in the north, they promise more, they want to make you happy, and they also want to get the deal done. So they'll actually say more, promise more than they'll actually do. So once you understand that, then you will actually do much better. Coming from an American's perspective, living there since I was a child, we believe, and in America, you believe probably 80-90% of what people say is what they'll do and what they mean, right? So with that said, I came here and I believed everything that everybody said, from business partners to what I call friends to even my family members. But in reality, that is not the truth. And you cannot just rely on what people say. And so I have to adjust. So with that said, it's a matter of not fully listening. You can listen to what they say and you can trust, but always verify, right? The verification process is important to make sure that what they say is true, how much of it is true, and how much of it you can rely on to make your decisions. So that's one of the big things that I've learned when I was moving to Vietnam. And every year I would get better and better at judging people, at understanding and listening, and then actually deciphering the information, and then also sifting through what we call the bullshit, okay? So that's the lesson number one that I learned that helped me a lot. I wouldn't say successful, but to better understand the market, understand the people, and really happily living here in Vietnam. So once someone in the north would say Van, you would say, hey, do you agree to the deal? They'll say Van. But you would think it's a yes, I agree, but no, Van, it means I am listening. So therefore, a yes does not necessarily mean a yes in the north. Where in the south they go, and it's similar, they say D, which means I understand, but it doesn't mean a yes. And then once you fully understand the context and the things you're asking, if you get a Van or a D instead of a yes, you should clarify specifically what do you mean, and can I actually get a yes, which means tuing E or tui pn. That would be yes, I agree, or yes, I understand, to fully mean that it's a yes. So I would always recommend clarifying when they say yes and when they say no, and what do they actually mean. So the second thing that I think you really need to take into account is understand the difference between dating a Vietnamese girl and then having or marrying a Vietnamese wife. So, I've been here since 2013. I've also traveled to Vietnam since 2009. And then a little bit of leisure when I was much younger. And it's actually changed tremendously. I remember way back in the days when I was a young man in my 20s, I came back to Vietnam in the 90s. And then as part of the 2000s, the U.S. passport was extremely valuable. The U.S. passport was extremely valuable, right? You can just have a U.S. passport and then the Vietnamese women really like you. They want to be with you and they want to marry you. And I had many instances, even in Kamal in the 90s, I would go back because there weren't many foreigners or coming to Vietnam yet. I literally meet people and they would, the young women would just come up to our table. They would just stare at me. Well, because I guess I look different, than the typical Vietnamese man in the countryside. So they would stare at me and then they would tell my uncle and my dad that, hey, I want to marry your son or your nephew for me. And I told them, I was like, why? Why would I marry her? It's kind of weird. I just barely met her. I don't even know her name. Even one time, the food came out so late, one of the girls went into the kitchen and made me a bun chao. That was a very interesting and weird experience. But that's what my first experience with the Vietnamese girls. However, if you fast forward to modern day Vietnam now in 2020 or even 2010 and above, the Vietnamese women are extremely modern, highly educated, both domestically, at great universities, and also internationally. And then you have also Vietnamese who went to Singapore, Japan, Korea, surrounding areas, Thailand, studying and coming back here to work for multinational corporations. So the Vietnamese women now, especially in modern society, are educated, hard workers, very innovative, and also entrepreneurs. And also they speak English very well. So to be honest with my fellow Americans or my fellow Viet Q buddies who think that you can just come to Vietnam and hit on women, you will actually be in a culture shock. And I've seen it many times. One really easy example is there's a very popular bar here called Quai Lounge, and it's all the foreigners, expats, and professional Vietnamese that come at a table with a bottle, right? Usually we order a bottle and had about 4 or 5 women with me. And then these 2 Vietnamese American guys came up to the table with their beers. Very, very American thing to do. They held their beers and they're like, they looked at me and they go, "Oh, hey, you have so many women here. Can we come to the table and talk to them?" I was like, "Sure, go ahead. You can talk to them." And then he talked to one of the girls and she said in English, she said, "Are you planning to order a bottle?" And then he goes, "No, I just have my 2 beers. I'm a Vigil from America and Vigil from France, right? You know, can I buy you a drink?" She goes, "No, I only drink bottles." And then they asked, "How much is a bottle?" "Oh, about 8 million. So about $400. And then the guy left, and the girls looked at me and they laughed. So that is one of the differences from making your bancheo in the countryside 20 years ago to now only doing bottle service, right? So for the dating scene, for the guys who are coming here to try to hit on the modern Vietnamese women, you definitely have to step up your game. You don't need to spend a ton of money. And also, probably in a different episode, maybe 10 years from now, I'll talk to you the difference between a woman with standards versus a woman who's a gold digger. It could be a fine line if you don't understand it, but that's not what our channel is about. It's not about dating. It's more about sharing my experiences. So if you fast forward it, 2019, I got married to a Vietnamese woman, an amazing, amazing woman. I spent my time, I had my fun, met a lot of people, dated a lot, but I finally settled down in 2019. The difference between a Vietnamese girl in the dating scene versus a Vietnamese woman is the Vietnamese women are, I would say, probably 28 and above, are very focused. They've worked for about 6 to 7 years, university graduate, they're family people, and they want to have families. They want to build assets, and they have a lot of drive and determination to succeed. The majority, 99% of the women are not trust fund babies or don't have families who have a ton of money. They work really hard. They move from the countryside to the city in order to have a better life, and sometimes they're even supporting their families, right? So they're very driven, very focused, and they know how to make money. So I learned that if a woman can make her own money and she has a good lifestyle, what we call a Henry high earner, not rich yet, and then you add on somebody you know that can make money as well, that now she has no more expenses, right? She just has savings. So if you cover all the expenses of living, eating, housing, and all her money that she makes, and she saves, which she's an amazing saver. Like the Vietnamese wife is an amazing saver, and if she can make money, then she'll build up assets extremely quickly. So that's something very valuable. I can't share in this video in too much detail because every man's experience is different. Their asset level, their education level, their goals. So I won't share any detail, but that from my own personal experience here in Vietnam, the last 10 years and being married for 5 years, I'm much happier, much more focused. And also I'm still enjoying all the benefits and fun and life in Vietnam while also making money with my Vietnamese wife. All right, another thing I've learned in Vietnam is regarding the food, right? Growing up as a Vietnamese American in the United States, my mom's from the South, so she always cooked Vietnamese food from what's called caco, or tep rang and teco. So a lot of the food items that I ate are very similar to what I ate in the United States. And when I first came back to Vietnam, there was not a lot of variety of international foods such as Korean, Japanese, Italian, French. But throughout the years, especially in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, a lot of international expat communities will live here. So the food has increased tremendously, especially now you have foods such as Japanese, but you have fine Japanese food like omakase, where it's a fixed menu. Also, you have fusion food as well. So Vietnamese, French, or Vietnamese, Japanese or Vietnamese, Korean food as well. So the fusion food has also gone to another level where you have 21 course meals. A Michelin star restaurant called Abba Tom that I go to often. There's a Japanese one called Yazawa, which is 7 courses of beef and an amazing sake selection. You also have steak. So I would say the steak game in Vietnam has increased dramatically. You had some of the more common or upscale ones, such as El Gaucho and then Il Quota. And then now, with a dry-aged steak being used as well, then you will have prime or you have stoker, which is going with a dry-aged. So after eating all of this fine food from foie gras to wagyu to see urchin and all these exotic foods, I realized I'm actually a very simple guy. I just enjoy a basic, and I ask myself, what can I eat every single day and still enjoy it every single day? So I tested myself, and I ate this one item every single day, 3 times a day, even to the level of testing my budget. So I said, I'm going to eat 100,000 VND a day. So 100,000 is roughly about $4.50. And I found an item. It's delicious. It's simple. It was right next to my house. And I ate it for 30 days straight, 3 times a day. Can you guess what that item is? It is kum tem, which is like broken rice. Super simple. You have rice, you have onion and onion oil, or emhan. Then you have a piece of pork chop, and then a fried egg. And then, of course, you got to have your Vietnamese nuoc mum, which is critically important. So there's a place in District 4 that I ate 3 times a day, 30 to 35,000 per plate in 30 days. Right? I think I gained a little weight during that time, but it was still good. What I realized is you don't need to be super fancy and spend money on exotic foods all the time in order to enjoy your life. Just do what you want, eat what you want, and enjoy it every day. It's all the little things. So I'll still do the challenge. In fact, actually, I do eat every day. Now I have a cook that cooks me every day, and I eat at 6 p.m. every single day. And that's an enjoyment of the simple and things in life. Even though I'm at a different state in my life, I can afford to eat fine dining, and I do it with my clients, and I do when I host people. But I'm a pretty simple guy. If you just give me a plate of kum tem, then enjoy myself just as much as I'm eating 500 steak at a steakhouse. Another thing that's important the biggest fear when I moved back to Vietnam, and then I say physically I moved back in 2013, mentally I moved back in 2017 when I decided to stay here long term. One big concern was whether the healthcare system was going to be available. As I was in my 30s and now I'm in my 40s, and then also having kids, how is the healthcare system going to support my lifestyle? And also a lot of the clients, a lot of you who are asking me questions about retiring, and I've seen the actual growth of the healthcare system tremendously. From the public sector to the private sector, and now international quality private sector healthcare. And to be honest, once a while I'll go to the public hospitals as well, right? There's I Help You, which has a hospital as well. And then also, for giving birth, there is a hospital which is one of the most famous ones and most experienced, predominantly. I'll go to American International Hospital, or I'll go to FV Hospital, or Hong Mai, which is a hybrid between international, private, and then local private. But all of these options are available for you. Knock on wood, I'm fortunate I haven't had to do any major surgeries or any injuries that I would require to be evacuated out of Vietnam that they couldn't take care of. But having international insurance here in Vietnam helped me a lot. With the international coverage, if I needed to do, I would say major surgery, open heart surgery, even brain surgery, or dialysis, or something that you have to really open up the body to do. I'm not a doctor, but I know if something happens, I can fly to Thailand or to Singapore, which are both less than 2 hours away, to be able to do those major surgeries, and it will be covered with international insurance. So with that said, there are many options available in the healthcare system. We made an entire video comparing the public, private, and government-owned healthcare systems. So you should definitely watch that video in order to get more details on that. But all in all, I would summarize that Vietnam's healthcare system covers 95% of all your annual checkups and all your coverage and needs. With the 5% of major surgeries, you would have to go to Thailand or Singapore or even back to the United States. Another thing that I was concerned about besides healthcare was safety, right? You hear about, Vietnam being a developing country, and especially, I came here as a child or in the 90s and then as an adult in the 2000s, and the countryside versus the city and the safety. So to be honest, back in the 90s, I felt like the United States was much safer gun control. And then just in general police security, I thought it was going to be safer. And then I was worried about when I came to Vietnam, especially with my parents saying things like, you're going to get kidnapped or you're going to get taken, or all of these things that they understood in the 70s and 80s in Vietnam. But of course it changed dramatically. One of the big things and the big difference I compare to what I know, living in the US for 30 years in Vietnam for 10 years, it was regarding guns, right? In California, we don't allow guns either. But in other states in the US, like Texas, Florida, you're allowed to have guns. But in Vietnam, guns are fully outlawed. Not even conceal and carry or open and carry. No policies allow you to have guns. The only people who have guns are the military, who legally have guns. I right now in 2023 feel it's much safer in Vietnam than I am in the United States, especially with all the hate crime, with all the petty crime in the US. Vietnam, because there are no guns. I mean, the worst that can happen, and you read it in the news, is some crazy guy stabbed 6 people, right? He killed 6 people at one time. And unfortunately, it's a joke, but it's a reality. He killed his wife, and then 3 of his children, and then the mother-in-law. And that was quite unfortunate. But that's like 6 people, where in the US, you have a gun, and you're going to have mass shootings, murders and killings as well. So in Vietnam, it's only mostly petty crime, pickpockets, or very low-level robberies. Like say you don't have mass murders, you don't have serial killers, and those situations like you would in the United States. But one thing I want to mention, and I was quite traumatized, is I think it was like 2015, when I was first coming back to Vietnam, I saw a dog napping right before my eyes. I was walking, I was just drinking some juice, and then right across a motorbike pulled up. One guy jumped out, backed this dog, and then just took off. And I was so shocked and frightened because, I love animals. And to see that right before my eyes was extremely shocking. And then I started watching all these videos, and unfortunately, dog napping is a big, big problem here in Vietnam, where they'll feed poison to the dog, or they'll shock the dog, and then dog nap, right? So, that's kind of a one situation. Aside from that, I've never been in a situation where I felt so threatened for my life, or there were gang members or anything, or hate crimes in Vietnam. Anything's against foreigners. So, with that said, I think Vietnam is currently extremely safe. And also, if you have certain economic status, then you can protect yourself and your family by living in apartments that have high security, such as Empire City, or such as Sala, or Diamond Island, or any one of these projects where you have 24-hour security that will be able to protect you, and you don't have to worry so much. And we made a video about Vietnam safety in one of the safety index as well, so you can watch that video. So coming from sunny Southern California, where the weather is always nice, I can go to the beach, I can go to the mountains, I can stay outdoors all day long, to Ho Chi Minh City, which is in the south of Vietnam. It is hot, super hot, or duper hot. That's it. It's always just hot here in Vietnam. Translating the degrees, you're looking at 27 degrees up to 35, sometimes over 40, which would be, you're talking about in your 80s up to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And compound that with the problem of humidity. It's so humid. So it makes it feel like it's much, much hotter than it really is. So if you look from that standpoint, you would think it's most difficult. But if you live here long enough, and people always ask me, how come you're always in suits? It's so hot. But in reality, just like right now, I'm actually in my car, I'm in air conditioning. I get out of my car, I go into my office, I'm in air conditioning. Also, coffee shops or restaurants or any of those are all fully air conditioned. So therefore, you're only in the heat for maybe about, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Unless if you're shooting videos at Yoon Global, where the marketing team makes me go out and shoot videos and it's super hot and I sweat. But because I do it for you guys, aside from that, I'm mostly in air conditioning all the time. I've gotten used to it. And the best time to come to Vietnam, if you're going to the south, is from November to February, where the weather's really, really nice. It feels like Orange County, and you can really, really enjoy. And then in the north, it's much better. If you go to Hanoi, Sapa, or one of those northern regions, it's much, much better. It's 4 seasons. You have winter, you have summer, you have autumn and spring. The weather's extremely nice, so you can enjoy and from time to time it would snow and rain as well. So there are many, many experiences in the north, more diversified weather than it is here in the south. But trust me, you'll get used to it because we have air conditioning everywhere, and if you live near the water. So I'm actually driving right now through Empire City and Thu Thiem area. In Tu Duc City, it has great waters, and it has a lot of, what do you call it, like wind, natural wind from the Saigon River, and it's very comfortable as well.